I'd like to invite our first speakers to the stage, please. So we're very pleased to be joined for our first session, our superstar session about making profitable hyper-casual hits by our sponsor Sunday. So do we have Christoph and Balaji? I believe we've got joining us here. I think I can see Christoph in the window there.
Yes.
Hi there.
Hi, Dave.
Hi there. So hi, Christoph. Thank you. And Balaji. So we've got Christoph Sachsenhausen and Balaji Thangaraj Vijayan joining us from Sunday to do our first talk. So hi, folks. How are you both doing? Oh, perfect. I think Balaji, you're still muted there. Oh, there we go. You're great.
Hi, nice to meet you as well, Dave.
Yeah, thank you for being with us. Really looking forward to your talk. So here's what we'll do. I'll fade into the background and you guys take over. Really looking forward to this talk. If anyone in the audience has got questions, they can drop them into the Q&A box here, and I'll come back at the end. So you guys can just do your presentation. Don't worry about those. I'll join you again in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and we'll just go through those talks, those questions then together, okay? In the meantime, over to you, folks.
All right, cool. Thank you very much for the intro, Dave. You always had almost perfect pronunciation of both of our names, which are definitely not easy to pronounce in their own way. So yeah, I just go ahead and share my screen, and then we get things started. So first of all, I'm usually not a morning person, but I've had my coffee today. I had a good breakfast. So great to kick things off today and start with the hyper-casual track. Hope you enjoy it and hope you take away some things from it, and also it's hopefully entertaining for you, right? Hyper-casual is all about being entertaining and being simple and being direct. So I hope we can deliver some value while also giving you a good time. All right, today I want to talk to you about making profitable hyper-casual hit games in our industry. And I mean, in the end, you as a developer, that is your ultimate goal, right? You want to run your own small company. You want to earn money with this. You want to pay your employees. We as a publisher, we have the same goal, right? It's always nice to have a game in the charts and to put that on your LinkedIn page, but the end goal of our business here is making profits. That's the gaming industry, right? So before we get into this, we first need to go to Hyper-Casual University. So what we do in Hyper-Casual University, we dissect the life cycle of a hyper-casual game. So when you look at different life cycles of hyper-casual games, and there are tools out there, you know, like App Annie, Sensor Tower, we use Apptopia, for example, then you can see the download numbers over the whole lifetime of a game. So when you look at any game from most publishers, you see something like this, right? So you see a curve in the beginning, and then suddenly it ramps up super quickly, and then it drops down like this. And so this is the amount of downloads that the game is getting, and this is the amount of days. So this 100 days, 200 days, 300 days. This is just like a rough example. It's not from a specific game, but usually you will see a curve like this. Now it's super critical to understand what is happening here in the lifetime of this like almost 1 year, and you can dissect it or slice it into different phases, the lifetime of the game. So the first phase is scaling the game up, right? So this is usually the phase you have tested your game successfully with the publisher, and now what the publisher is doing, they are creating marketing campaigns, user acquisition campaigns, right? And they're doing this on different networks. So classically, you have like Facebook, you have TikTok now, you have Unity, Iron Source, AppLovin, all of those big marketing networks, right, that you're buying traffic from. And how this network works is usually that you create a campaign and you have a target CPI bid. Let's say you believe your game can get a lot of traffic at a CPI of 25 cents, right? That's really good. And what you do now is you start the campaign with a higher bid. So we start maybe with twice the CPI bid. That means like you start with 50 cents. Why do you do this? In order to get traffic on the campaign, because these algorithms of all these networks, they need to learn where are they getting the best traffic from, where are they getting the highest volume of users from, right? So this is basically kicking off all the algorithms of all the different ad networks. And this usually takes a couple of weeks. But in this phase, and this is really critical, you are not earning money, you are actually losing money. So you're investing in the collection of data actually for your game. And this is basically a phase that you're in the absolute negative there, right? And over the lifetime of the game, you need to equalize it with the money that you're earning later. So the next phase that's coming then is a throttling down phase. What does it mean? So this is a job of all the UA managers at your publisher, that they go into those campaigns, they see like which campaigns in which countries work really well, from which sources are they buying the best traffic or the best volumes, and now they are reducing the bits, the CPI bits in the different campaigns, but that means also the traffic is going down, right? The volume is going down. But it is getting more effective. Now you're not overspending so much anymore. So this is an area where it's a gray area. So some campaigns, they might already be profitable, or some countries might already be profitable. Others are still on the way that. And this usually also takes a couple of weeks until you have adjusted all your campaigns and all your countries until they're on a good level. And now basically comes an interesting phase. Everything that happens after that, like when all the networks, all the campaigns are well adjusted, that's where you get actually money in. That's where your lifetime value of a user is higher than the CPI bit that you're paying in all the networks. Okay, so that's basically the lifetime value of the life cycle of a game. And the green phase is what we are most interested in, right? That's basically what we're aiming for as publisher, and you should also aim for as developer, of course, right? So let's look at some examples of bad life cycles. So this is data from Apptopia. So this is from one of those App Insight websites. And what you can see here is the download chart of some typical games that I just selected there. And here you see in all of them, you have this big spike in the beginning, and then over the next weeks, it's dropping down, and then it's very quickly, after a few more weeks, it's fizzling out until it's completely, like, almost getting no more downloads at all, or probably they even turned off the marketing campaigns, right? Here you see all the same pattern everywhere, big spike, like this area under the curve. That's interesting one, right? Because that's where you're losing money, and only here in this area under the curve, that's where you're gaining money. And you can see this area is, of course, much bigger than what we're getting out here at the end. So in the end, what the publisher will do is, of course, take this minus this and then share the profits with you, right? That's the business model. And so you want to have this big curve here as big as possible, right? So we can look at some other examples of slightly better games. So here you can see already, all right, they have some losses in the beginning, they're ramping up. That's also, by the way, the time where usually in the charts, right? So at this peak here, that's where you get the top chart positions. But that's also why it's not so good for you that you're in the charts usually for a long time, because this is actually costing actively money, right? So you want to throttle down and adjust and get to a profitable, efficient level as quickly as possible. So this already looks a lot better, I think. And this is from some of the bigger publisher. You see similar curves there. They're all doing a great job, of course, there. But I want to show you something a lot better than this. And I want to show you the lifetime curve of our first published hit game that's called Cat Escape, that we launched in November. This is also data from Apptopia, because I didn't want to show you data here from our internal systems, which is of course more accurate, but we want to compare apples to apples, right? So like I showed you those life cycles from other games from Apptopia. Now we get to see the same data from the same system. And yeah, what do you see here? Of course, we see a scaling up phase in the beginning, and then we adjust the campaigns, try to be quite quick about this, see what works and what not. And then you see here this very stable green curve in the end, when you can already tell, like, this is a lot bigger. The area under this curve is a lot bigger than what you see here in the losses section in the beginning. So this is a very cool situation for us, because this game is really still paying the salary of 20 people, and it's getting more and more profitable over time, as we'll see. So and also super interesting, it never got a Facebook CPI below 30 cents. So what you hear often from publishers is, yeah, your game must be below 25 cents, below 20 cents, below 30 cents if they're a little bit more relaxed, right? But Cat Escape never got a CPI below 30 cents. And why we still publish it, we will explain you later. But what you can see here is that over time, it's actually gaining more and more profits. So not only is it still going very, very strong, but the amount of profits that we're actually getting every month is still increasing month by month. And these are real numbers now. This is from our real system. I know a lot of publishers often don't share their real revenue numbers. In this case, we can definitely do it because it's our own in-house developed game. And you can see, like in June, we are almost pushing here for 1.5 million in profits. So this is not gross revenue. This is really net revenue after subtracting marketing costs. So this is just a rough idea of what games we have out there. Good, and now I give over to Balaji, our head of publishing.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so we started publishing, taking the learnings from our internal developments and internal publishing. We decided to start the publishing in May. And pretty much the first week we started, we met this very young studio called Regular Duck from Turkey. And they came to us saying, hey, we have a game, and it was a fairly finished game. So upon asking, they were transparent that it was rejected from another publisher, and they would like to see the chances with us. It was when we had a first look at the game, it was pretty interesting. And then they did share that the reason for rejection was high CPI. So what we did was we first did our orientation test, right, to see the data. Pretty much we saw great promise in the game. It was pretty engaging. Check it out on the Play Store and the App Store. And we did not change anything from the videos or from the previous test, right? We just used it as it is. Pretty much zeroed in on the key metrics that we required to improve for profitability. In this case, it was pretty much the retention. And there, when we started, the retention was, I think, 33 or a little bit less than that. And then we got our internal game teams involved, say, like, what can we do to improve this? I think we have about like 7 iterations in around like 2.5 weeks. And we reached this magic metric about 40, and we pretty much published the game in 3 weeks. And now the game is going to be hitting profitability just in a couple of days, right? So taking this facts or learnings from our previous wins as well as losses, that we look beyond CPI, and for us the main metric is profitability of the game, and as long as the LTV is greater than the acquisition cost, it makes sense. We don't it doesn't matter if it's number 1 or number 5 or number 100. This is how we look at games. So moving on from here, what do we do? I wouldn't say different. A lot of publishers may also do the same, but what do we do? We look beyond the CPI. What does it mean? The common practice for most publishers, and for us also, to do the first test on Facebook, right? Because it gives a pretty good data results in terms of marketability tests. Because it is the first gate to pass for hyper-casual games, right? But we don't take the Facebook CPI value at face value. Say our own internal intelligence tools have the ability to extrapolate as to what we can achieve in other networks. So that comes from us being part of the Apply group, which Chris will talk about later. And we look at the overall marketability on different networks, right? Plugin is a great example. It's a very, TikTokable game, as we call it. So we even did like a funny voiceover in internal TikTok videos so that they're great results on TikTok. And sometimes a specific game does have a specific catch in certain networks. And all this we put in relation to the ARPU this game can achieve, because at the end, it's the profitability that matters, right? Nothing else. Yeah, moving on from here.
Yeah, I think I'll take over here again, yeah. Right? So as Balaji mentioned, we take a look at the much more intricate details of the game. So a lot of publishers, they just have this CPI gate that you need to jump through. We also have some marketability gates that you need to reach. But in the end, when we actually try to evaluate if this game is going to be successful, we take a look at it at several angles, right? Because having a good CPI, a very low CPI is nice, but how we look at games is basically they are ad impression multiplication machines, right? So in a very engineering term, right? So in the end, let's say you have an ad for your game and you show it to 1,000 people, right? And out of those 1,000 people, 100 people actually install your game. That means you need to show 10 ads until one person installs the game. So 10 ads on the minus side. And then you can see like, okay, how many people are actually, like how long are people playing my game? And over their lifetime, let's say they play the game for 5 days, for 7 days, 10 minutes a day, they watch around 20 ads inside of the game. That means you need 10 ads to get them into the game, and then you can show 20 ads to them, right? And as long as the number of ads that you can show to them is higher than the amount of ads that you need to get them into the system, you're earning money, right? That's our super basic, super simplified way of looking at games. Of course, in reality, it's much more intricate, much more sophisticated. There are a lot of different things going on, and you can look at it on very different dimensions. But when trying to keep it as simple as possible, that's how it works, and that's how we evaluate games. So you might be wondering, who are these guys and who is this wonderful company and where are they coming from? So let me quickly introduce ourselves. So we are Sunday. We are a fairly new publisher out of Hamburg in Germany. And we have been around since 1.5 years now. Firstly and foremost, we started developing games ourselves, but we recently also went into publishing with Balaji heading this up and building up the publishing team there, and already having really, really good successes with Placket in the first month of his team being here. We are a very diverse international team. That means we are around over 20 people at the moment with more than 10 nationalities. Although our location is based in Germany, English is our main company language. And so what we have done basically is we have gathered the best experts from all around the world. So there are people working as developers and artists, as user acquisition managers, in BI, as game designers, game leads, producers, right? So we really have everything that we need to completely push a game forward that we really believe in, and to make any idea that we have work internally, but also we're sharing all of this with our publishing team, and all the insights that we are generating inside of the team, this all goes out to our publishing partners as well. And how do we operate? How we do this? We really strongly believe in having small, dedicated, agile teams, and this is extremely good for communication, right? So when you had frustrating experiences with other publishers before, this was usually because communication takes a long time, right? And that's usually because you have a communication hierarchy. That means, you know, you have a request coming in, or someone, you want the evaluation of an idea or a game, and then this goes up the hierarchy, and then it trickles down again. And this can take up to like several days or even weeks until a decision is being made, or until you get feedback on an idea. We have a different approach there. So all of our teams they are self-reliant, they're following their goals, they're interacting with each other directly, you know, and there is no like upper management green light process, right? So we share the knowledge within all the different teams and the company, and they are able to make decisions for themselves. And that means here you will get feedback and decisions in days, or sometimes even in hours, right? That's our service that we also provide to you. Also super important to mention is that we are part of the Applied Group. And the Applied Group is a very big player in the app marketing industry. So for example, with a company Just Dice, they are the European leaders in rewarded apps, and over the years that they're operating, they're super profitable, and they've built up a very sophisticated marketing stack. So we have our own BI system there. And if you're wondering like, hey, how were those guys able to scale their first hit game so well and get so fast into all the different details? That's because we are able to use the whole tech stack from the Applied Group that they have built over the years, and that is super adjusted to our needs. And so basically we have our very own sophisticated marketing tools there that we can use also for internal games, but for publishing games, and we share the data with our partners there. Then we have Edjo as a monetization company that also helps us scaling a lot. So it's both, like it's an ad network, but also we can monetize with them. So you're probably also seeing some parallels to some of the other big publishers out there that have their ad network in the background. And then the third, like the new kids on the block, that's us, that's Sunday. And this is all being made possible by generous funding from a very huge German media company, Bertelsmann. So they are the owners of several TV stations and one of the big media players in Europe, basically. And I think I'm taking over to Balaji now again.
Thanks, Chris. So, taking on from where Chris left, our publishing team operates basically on these three values, and the most important for us is developer empowerment, right? So, being developers ourselves, we have learned like what can happen if developers are given like complete our shared data, and every feedback has to be backed with data. And the way we work is we share our creative feedback, but it's always backed with some kind of data or parallels or learnings from our internal tests and development, so that the decisions right from ideation to publishing can happen together, right? In the end, it's a developer's call. The IP is owned by developer. All our contracts, ensure that, and the whole creative freedom lies with the developer. And we have seen this now. I know, great results happening from this type of working in the past few weeks, right? And this is pretty clear that a studio, and this the best demonstration here is the regular duck again, who has never published a game before. Within like 3 or 4 weeks of working with us, could not only publish a game but publish a profitable hit game. Direct communication, being Germans, I guess, this is very part of the culture, but also the company. What does this mean is, be it our contracts or feedback, there is no room for misinterpretation, right? And our agile and dedicated team, like Chris mentioned, are really on top of everything, and they answer the queries pretty quickly. And the last, of course, like this whole talk was about it, is sustainable profits. For us, it doesn't really matter what position the game is in, as long as it's profitable and there's a good amount of revenue to be shared between the developer and the publisher, it makes sense for us. With this, I would end this talk, I guess.
Yes.
Thank you. And there's, I think, some few more questions for if you can take it.
Yes, absolutely. Let me come back in here and say thank you very much, guys. That was great. Really, really good introduction. I don't know whether you can see me, but you can probably hear me. I'm going to give you a round of applause. There you go. I have to imagine that from everyone. One day we'll be back in the same room for these things again, and you can get the applause from people live. But we have got a bunch of questions. We've got a few minutes, so we probably won't get through them all. I want to thank everyone for dropping their questions in there, but I'll grab a few of these. I'm gonna first of all, I'm just going to grab Zvi's question. They posted a question both in the chat window and in the Q&A box. It's the same one, so I'll grab it from here. So what is a marketable CPI in your eye, or the maximum you will move forward with? A sub-question of
That's what the whole talk is about, right? So
right.
The thing is, like, Facebook will give you a CPI, but that's very specific for trying to scale on Facebook. There are a lot of different ad networks out there that also work very well outside of Facebook, right? So that's basically what we are trying to say here. We don't take the Facebook CPI at face value. We still look at it, but it's not the determining criteria. There are a lot of other marketability metrics that are more important for us. So what we try to find out when we test a game on Facebook is, yes, will it scale on Facebook? But when it doesn't scale on Facebook, will it scale on all of the other networks, which behave very differently than Facebook? So there are other metrics that we look for. Going too much into detail would cost too much time, I think. So if you're super interested to talking about this, we would be quite happy, and just write us after the talk, and then we can schedule a meeting.
That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, of course, your email is still on the screen there, and I imagine that our viewers can find you in the Meet to Match platform or on Discord or whatever as well. I'm going to grab another question here. Personally, so I found your opening segment, just talking about the life cycle of games, really illuminating. We've got a few questions about that. one of the questions is, what is the average life cycle length of a hyper casual game? I'm asking because it seems different publishers have different views on that matter.
It totally depends on the game, of course, right? Every game is different. There are games that quickly fizzle out after like 3 or 4 months. There are games that are still going strong after 2 years. So it's difficult to answer this. For Cat Escape, for us, for example, has a very, very long life. We were also quite surprised by this, and of course, positively surprised. I think this is really an exceptional game. But of course, there will also be games that, you know, don't get much traction after 3 months, especially when they're following certain fast trends, right? So a lot of games that are popping up right now are following TikTok trends, social media trends. So these can work for a long term, but I think that they're often more short-lived, because then the attention is again on a different thread.
Interesting, thank you. Let's a very specific question here from one of our attendees. From an indie. So for an indie, what is the minimum DAO, daily active users, needed to achieve good fill rates and impressions per DAO for a 100% ad monetized game? And the texture they've said is that they're in a tier 3 or 4 geos like Brazil, India, Mexico, Argentina.
So the minimum amount of daily active users to get, I mean, you can get a high fill rate and fill all your impressions with very few daily active users. The question is, like, when you are live in just tier 3 countries, then you really need a lot of impressions to gain any significant profit from the game, right? And I mean, you have to offset this with your operating costs for paying salaries, right? So usually the biggest profits are coming from tier 1 countries. We are also heavily scaling in markets like Brazil and Mexico, and that's where we're actually getting the most amount of impressions from, but that's not where all the profits lie and where the biggest share of revenue lies. So it can work on a pretty low scale, but then the question is more like, when you're earning $50 a day, right? How does this pay a living wage, right?
That's great. Thank you. So, and then we had that was some very specific questions. This is a more general one there. So one of our anonymous attendees has said that they're interested in developing hyper-casual games, but they only know how to develop good games. They don't really know about the business side of things. Are publishers, like Sunday, for instance, able to help with that? What advice do you have for someone in those circumstances? So a developer who knows how to make games, but doesn't necessarily get the business side of it.
Sure, definitely. We can definitely help you with that. So I think the biggest thing that you need to bring to the table is the willingness to learn and to look at the development process from a different angle. Mostly with casual games or mid-core games, the development process is just very different, or the approach to development and how you think about the games. We can coach you how to get the right mindset for it. But you need to be able to adapt those learnings quickly. And actually, I mean, how the development process works is super well documented. I think there are a lot of talks and documents that you can read that can get you into the process. We can tell you much more details, or like go more into your unique challenges as a company. But in general, it's you have to follow the approach that is recommended as a best practice there. That's
just to add to that, fun fact is a lot of upcoming hits or promising games we see is from people who have never developed games before, and probably hyper-casual is the best ones for them to start with.
Exactly.
That's great. That's really interesting. Exactly. That's really interesting. So, in fact, actually, let's talk a little bit more about some of the developers coming to be published by you guys. We've had a few questions on that, and I think we've got a moment before our next speaker joins us. So I'm going to grab some of these. So, so obviously these are questions coming from developers, I guess. One of our attendees has asked, what does your typical profit share split look like? So what's your model?
So it's, I mean, it always depends on the amount of support that the developers ask, right? Some developers say, hey, you know, we really don't want to spend the next 6 months worrying about our wages. Can you just, you know, fund us for the next 6 months? Right. Then it's a different number. Some developers are, you know, we can do the tests ourselves. We just want you to scale the game, or we want to come really late at the publishing stage. Obviously, that's like a bigger number. So yeah, there is a range. But yeah, for details, you can just write to talk to us, write to us at the email, and we pretty much get in touch with you within 24 hours.
That's perfect. And in fact, actually, on that note, then, so as the introduction to your company that you gave at the end there was great. And somebody's asked, as a new publisher, why did you decide to target the hyper-casual market? It's what attracted you to that sector? Is it, as you get into this?
Well, there are several strategic reasons, of course, that we have inside of the Appler group to just have ad monetized games out there, right? So, I mean, you see a lot of those synergies with some of the ad networks that I mentioned that also have their own publishing unit. For us, it's the same motivation, basically, right? When you have your own ad network, you can scale the games much more effectively. That's, of course, on the business side. On the other side, it's just a very open market to get into. I think like when you start the development of a casual game or mid-core game, you often have to invest like six or more months until you first see results and see if your game will work. When we're really just starting up something new and going into a new area, I think hyper-casual is really perfect to quickly get results and also to quickly learn, because of course you fail a lot at the beginning, right? Most things don't work, but you will quickly be able to learn what works and what doesn't work.
That's great. And in fact, actually, Christoph, I'm going to come back to you on that point there, because one of our attendees has asked a question, which I think speaks to the point you just made, which is, what's your approach when you can tell you've got a good game or a good idea in your hands, but the numbers aren't what you'd like? Can you do anything about that? I guess the question that the attendee is asking is, can you rescue a game in those circumstances? Can you reiterate? What's your suggestion?
So I think then when the numbers don't tell you that the game is good, then maybe you should check your own mentality about like we have so many ideas that we really like and we really believe, oh, that's the next thing. But over time, you have to just learn to let it go, right? If you can believe in it, you can continue to iterate on it if you really have this gut feeling. But at a certain point, you have to kill it, right? That's just the rough reality. You cannot sustain this purely emotion-based approach, right? And this is something that you learn over time. It's like a muscle you can train.
Just to add to that, also depends on which numbers you say are good, right? I mean, do you mean like the average playtime is like 20 minutes, like outstanding, the CPI is 10 cents, but everything else is like, it depends on what's good. And then you see does it mean like you have to improve just one metric or two metric, or do you improve everything? If it's like everything, like Chris said, yeah, probably come back to it later. But if it's one or two, then there's still a chance.
Exactly.
That's great. Thank you. Well, look, perfect. We've got our next speaker here, so I'm going to wrap things up there. Really pleased to have you guys on. A round of applause from everyone. You can imagine it coming from the crowd. What I will say is, if anyone has follow-up questions, the email was on screen there. Also, these guys, you can find them on Meet to Match and Discord, and I know that we'll be hearing more from Sunday later, I'm sure. So look, thank you very much, and we'll move on to our next speaker, but really appreciate that. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
pleasure.
Thanks for having us.